This past week I heard of a Christian saying he didn't believe in proselytizing, reaching people with the gospel. Jesus said in Mark 16:15, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." I'd love to ask him, how would you correct Jesus? For those of you who have a difficult time handing out tracts, let me encourage you to get the movie gift cards from livingwaters.com. You can see these movies free at fullyfreefilms.com. And what I do, I'll hand some, if I'm in line somewhere, this is free for everyone who's in front of me in line. 6 free movies. And not at the theaters, but online. And if you know of anybody struggling with suicidal thoughts, this movie Exit is for them. Fullyfreefilms.com. You can see it right now. It's a 37-minute documentary. I'm telling you, folks, the response I've had is just phenomenal. So make sure you get those. Even if you hate handing out tracts, it's easy to hand out movie gift cards. Now, I hand out tracts. The other night, Dan Fox, Mitch, and Teresa and I were handing out some of these tracts to the Muslims. This is a great tract that when I see a young black man, I'll try to give him a copy of Unforgiven. Once he finds out Muhammad was a white man who had black slaves, why would he want to be a member of Islam? There's one called Men of Peace. That's an excellent tract for our Muslim friends. And Your Best Life. It's a Christian version, a Muslim version, a version appealing to Muslims from the This Was Your Life track. But you say Muslim friends, what are you talking about, Tim? Jesus was a friend of sinners. Okay? We need to reach these people. That's why we went to Dearborn for 5 years wearing a t-shirt that said, I love Muslims. And on the back, the verses that David Daniels says, more Muslims have come to Christ than any other verses. John 9:35 through 38, where Jesus says he's the Son of God. And you ask our Muslim friends, when do prophets lie? Well, my name is Tim Behrens. The name of the program is Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas. Mike Cahill and I are going to be heading to Mexico this coming week with gospel tracts for our Roman Catholic friends who only hope to get to heaven. You cannot say if you're a member of the Roman Catholic Church that you're going to heaven, because that's the sin of presumption. But 1 John 5:13 says, "These things have I written unto you that you may know that you have eternal life." If you're one of our Roman Catholic friends, I encourage you to go to chick.com and read Mary's Kids. That's what we'll be handing out. But I'd appreciate your prayers on that. You can hear today's program. Brandon will have it up. He's so gracious in doing this on Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas on YouTube, or you can see the newsletter at jesusandtim.tk, as in Thomas Kincaid, Jesus and Tim.tk. Just click on newsletter, and then if you want to hear the program, it's on YouTube, Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas. So happy to have him do that. And then Brother Dave, Super Dave, puts together the newsletter each month, and you can see the newsletter at jesusandtim.tk. Well, our friend Kent Hovind referred our guest today, and I am so thrilled to have him on, Ali Mirza Eza. I called him ahead of time, and I said, how do I pronounce this? And he said, that's a little difficult, but any chance you can change it to John Smith, Ali?
Actually, I have a name, Dan Mira. That's the name I chose, the half of my last name, so it makes it easy for people.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so thrilled. Well, what's a nice fellow like you doing in a faith like this? Why would somebody convert from Islam to a faith that Jesus said, if you're a follower of mine, you're going to be hated by the world in John 15:19? Why would you do that? Why would you leave the religion of peace? George W. Bush, former President George W. Bush, and former President Barack Hussein Obama they both said that Islam's a religion of peace. Why would you leave Islam and become a follower of Jesus Christ?
Okay, well, first of all, Islam is not a religion of peace. There are peaceful Muslims around. They don't follow the Quran, so that's why they are peaceful. First of all. Second, I was not planning to be a Christian. I was just questioning, God, who are you? And I came across with information about the corruption in the government, Satanism, and then that actually was a stepping stone for me to move on from that point. And and just ask God. It took like 1 year for me to put all the puzzles together and realize that Jesus is the Lord. Just no way around it.
Well, were there certain verses in the Bible that convinced you?
No, sir. I actually the miracle. I never read Bible before, but the information that it revealed to me, I talked to people about it, and it says, "Well, did you read the Bible?" I says, "No." For example, one of the revelation I got was, that was the statement that it came to my mind was, the code of creation is in the blood. And later on realized the Bible clearly said life is in the blood. So whether I was wrong or right at that time, that was something that I believed it. I said, well, everything is about blood. Satanism, the reason they sacrifice the animals in the high level government, they sacrifice children because they need blood, and then Satan cannot create. So what he does is copy God. So if you copy God, that means God needs blood. And God is a spirit. It doesn't have a blood unless he manifests as a human being. So then he has a blood, he can give it to you. He's a savior. Very simple.
Now, when we hear about these, the news media refers to them as terrorists. These are true Muslims. The only way a Muslim can know for sure they're going to paradise is how?
Well, it is basically, they don't know. They don't even know, like, according to the word of Muhammad. Muhammad doesn't even know if he's going to the heaven or not. So that makes it a very scary religion. And I'm sorry, what was the part of the question you asked me?
Well, how can a Muslim know for sure they're going to paradise? Isn't it true that the only way they can do it is if they die in jihad by killing somebody?
That's the only way that guarantees that you go to heaven according to the religion, yes. But at the same time, they call it the radical Muslims, which not the radical Muslims. I'm not the radical Christian. They follow the Bible. So you're not the Muslim. In my opinion, you cannot call yourself radical if you follow the Quran. If you don't follow the Quran, then you made up the religion. Then you name it what it is.
Mm-hmm. Why is the news media so hesitant to tell the truth about Islam? I mean, even Fox News, they'll not tell the truth about Islam. Why is that?
Well, the thing is that in the political aspects, they are using Muslims to bring the one world government. That's what they're using it. So that's why you see, for example, if I grab the Bible, go to the library, and tell someone, hey, God loves you, Jesus loves you, they get offended, and you name it what they're going to do. But if the Muslim, in the middle of the work, he says, I'm going to go to prayer, in the middle of the parking lot, I have seen it myself, in the middle of the parking lot, they start praying. And they know that person, according to the religion, hate everybody who's not a Muslim. Mm-hmm. Then why he's allowed to do that? Well, the simple answer is because they are supported by the system. Very simple.
So if you were to walk up to a Muslim, let's say you're standing next to him at a bus stop, and you only have a couple of minutes with them, how would you reach him for the Lord?
Well, they're a very interesting question. It's hard to get Muslim, but here we have to start. Even the best Christian debaters, their focus, the objective in the debate is to prove that Quran is wrong, Muhammad was not a prophet. Let's that given. You can convince the Muslim that Muhammad was a fraud and Quran was not the holy book. Then still Muslims stay Muslims because it's not going to question that there is only one God who created the universe. They're not going to come to Jesus. The best way to explain to them why Jesus has to die, why Jesus was God. If you don't understand this, they're not going to convert.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Do you tell black men that the Quran is guilty of racism when it says that only those with white faces will be saved and those with black faces will be damned? That's in Surah 3, 106 and 107. It says in Surah 39:60 that those going to hell will be given black faces. If I were a black man, that's the last religion I'd want to join, especially when I found out that Dr. Morey has a tract called Islam, a White Slaver's Religion. I was quoting from that, and you can see that at faithdefenders.com. Also, Muhammad the Racist Prophet, where it says that Muhammad was a white man and not a black man, and that's in volume 1, hadith number 63. While we were sitting with the Prophet in the mosque, a man came riding on a camel. He made his camel kneel down in the mosque, tied its foreleg, and then said, "Who amongst you is Muhammad?" At that time the Prophet was sitting amongst us, his companions, leaning on his arm. We replied, "This white man reclining on his arm." Do you bring that out?
No, because they don't believe it. What it is if you say that reference to the Quran, if you have a black face, you go into hell. If you have a white face, you go to heaven. That is not racism there. I'm not saying that it's not racism. That it refers to, it's basically the figure of speech. They say if you're doing a bad thing, then your face is dark. It's not literally colored dark, but it says your face is dark. But they really mean what is inside you is dark. They don't mean racism. But racism is a different issue. What you said about the Muhammad, I was a Shia Muslim. I never came across with that source, but I believe that's it should be the Sunni source, because they have a lot more sources in there. So if you say that to them, right away they know that you have not studied Islam, so they're not going to listen.
Well, I've heard, I talked to a Muslim woman one time. She said she didn't believe in the hadith. If she said that in Saudi Arabia, they'd put her to death, wouldn't they?
It depends. Like, for example, I'm from Iran, and there's a law in the country that if you're a Muslim and you convert to Christianity, they kill you. But sometimes they don't do that. But they can if they want to. They legally can do that. But as far as Saudi Arabia, I'm not quite sure, but I won't be surprised if that's the case. So that's what they do. If you leave, if you say something against Islam, you have the power to influence people, of course they're going to kill you.
There's times when, if I'm talking to a Muslim, I'll say, all right, let's say you're a man, you have a wife and 4 children. Who would you want living next to you? Would you want Muhammad, who was married to 23 women, including a 6-year-old, consummated the marriage when she was 9, killed over 800 people, and then said, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to paradise or not? Or would you want Jesus Christ, who was born of a virgin, even the Quran says that, he lived without sin, he said, which of you accuses me of sin? He died on the cross, they don't believe that, but he rose from the dead. I encourage them to read Josh McDowell's book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, one of the most documented facts in all of history. 500 people saw him after he rose from the dead. Who would you want living next to you? And I think it's pretty obvious. None of us would want Muhammad.
Obviously, you're 100% logical, but it doesn't work. In an argument with them, it doesn't work. This is what it is. What it is. I mean, they would tell you back then, 6 years old, just ready to get married, and most of the time they didn't have a parents to take care of them, so why not? Mm-hmm. And they're gonna also tell you the reason he got married with so many women, not because he was after his lust, because he wants to advertise Islam. So if you have more family, more children, that's what I'm going to tell you. I'm saying that the only way, I believe so far, the only way they can come to Christ to understand why Jesus has to be, why God came, why Jesus is God, basically. Why? Because they say, God is so powerful. He says, well, let there be light, and he created us. With the speak. How come he cannot forgive you from up there? Why he has to come and die? Why he has to do that? They don't understand this. They don't get it. So that's a point. That's the approach I'm taking. About 3 days ago, I went to work. I saw a young lady sitting there, and the week before that, I went there and started, talking about Jesus. So this guy says, "Hey, Ali, how are you doing?" I said, "Oh, you remember my name?" I said, "Yes, that was good." That's what he says. That was good. You defend that. So he says, "Well, can you talk to her?" I said, "What's up? What's going on?" He said, "Well, she's going to get married with a Muslim, and she's going to convert to Islam." So obviously, it's not my business who's going to get married to. I'm not having no business in here. But I said to her the truth about Jesus, and we should not convert to Islam. That's a fact. I mean, you cannot not say that, you know. So,
Do you show them John 9:35 through 38, where Jesus said he's the Son of God? And then you ask them, when do prophets lie?
they will tell you that if you tell them that, if you talk to Muslims, they don't believe you. They're going to tell you what the Son of God, like also, if they know like a little bit about Bible, they will say, well, David called a Son of God. Son of God doesn't mean anything. It means like you're special to God. That's what they're going to tell you. But here's what I have to tell them. The truth, the difference between truth and lie is the truth. You don't make it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, can people see you? Are you going to be speaking anywhere? How do people get in touch with you? What do you recommend they do? Or would you rather not people get in touch with you? We might not be hearing from you again. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Ali Mirza Eza. Is that close enough? Ooh, we lost him. Okay. But let me encourage those of you who just tuned in. There are some good tracks that Jack Chick has. Allah Had No Son is what we handed out in Dearborn when we were wearing the I Love Muslim tracks, or the shirts, I Love Muslim, with John 9:35 through 38 on the back. That's where Jesus says he's the Son of God. Unforgiven, I will give this to young black men, and that's very well done. Your Best Life, it's a version for the Muslims from This Was Your Life, which is Jack Chick's most popular track. And then there's Men of Peace, and that'd be good for everybody to read. You can see those at chick.com. All right, I believe we have Sherwood on the line. Are you there, Sherwood?
Yes, I apologize. Phone drop.
Is this Sherwood Valley?
This is Ali.
Oh, Ali, yes. How
Yes.
can people get in touch with you, or would you rather they not? Just pray for you.
No, they can do that. They can do that. And actually, I offer $150 for 1 hour debate, whoever it is. Just bring your truth. And let's say if it's true, then I convert to yours. No problem.
Okay. And how can they get a hold of you?
My email address for now, it's ali.mirza1 .10
All right, you'll have to do that slower because I was trying to get that down a little too fast for me.
Okay. It's ALI, which is Alpha Lima India, dot, my last name, which is Mercury, India, Romeo, Zulu, Alpha, Romeo, Echo, Zulu, Alpha, .10.
.10?
Yes, sir.
Very good. We want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
No, thank you so much.
God bless you, brother.
God bless.
Have a great day in the Lord.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right. Very good. Well, we have a man that's scheduled to come on, Sherwood Bally, and he has a clip on YouTube called America in Prophecy, and I hope you can check that out. He is coming to town, I believe, May 13th, and he was supposed to be calling in, and I don't see him right now, but let me just share some of the track that Dr. Robert Morey has. It's called Muhammad the Racist Prophet. This is at faithdefenders.com. Was the founder of Islam a white racist? Did he have prejudicial views of black people? What was his view of the black man? Did he own black slaves? These questions are very important for black Americans because they've been conned by Farrakhan and other black Muslims into thinking that Muhammad was a black man and that Islam is the black man's religion. But if it can be shown that Muhammad was a white man, that he was a racist, and that he had prejudicial attitudes against black people, then Islam will lose all respect in the black community. What is the truth? First, Muhammad was a white man. There can be no doubt of this because the Hadith states this. Since Bukhari is accepted by all Muslims as the greatest of all Hadith scholars, we will use his collection of Hadiths. His work is entitled Sahih, S-A-H-I-H, quote unquote, which means it's absolutely authentic. In Hadith 163, chapter 1, verse 63, when a man arrived at the mosque, he asked, "Who amongst you is Muhammad?" The companions of the Prophet replied, "This white man reclining on his arm." Muhammad is described as a white person in Hadith 2:122 and in 2:141. When Muhammad raised his arms in prayer, we're told that the whiteness of his armpits became visible, quote unquote. The Hadith 1 verse 367 tells us that Anas, one of Muhammad's most trusted companions, quote, saw the whiteness of the penis of Allah's prophet, end quote. Any black man who converted to Islam because he was told by the Muslims that Muhammad was a black man should now realize he was suckered into becoming a Muslim by lies and deception. The only thing he can do is I lost my place there, is to regain his dignity, and to escape being a fool is to renounce Islam. Second, Muhammad was a slave owner of black slaves. In Hadith 6:436, when Umar came to visit Muhammad, he saw a black slave of Allah's apostle sitting on the first step. Lest some Muslim claim that Muhammad had only one black slave, we will now quote from Ibn Qasim al-Jarrah, a great Muslim historian. In his famous book Zad al-Ma'ad, Part 1, page 160, we read, Muhammad had many male and female slaves. He used to buy and sell them, but he purchased more slaves than he sold, especially after God empowered him by his message, as well as after his immigration from Mecca. He once sold one black slave for two. His name was Jacob al-Mudbir. He also tells us on pages 114 to 116 the names of Muhammad's black slaves. Bilal, Abu Hurairah, Usama ibn Zaid, and Rabah were some of the black slaves of Muhammad. Among the black slaves was a black man by the name of Maran. His story bears telling in the next section. The most famous slave market was in Mecca during Muhammad's day. Black people stolen from African villages were auctioned off like cattle. This same slave market in Mecca was still being used for buying and selling black slaves until the late 1960s. As you read this material, in the Sudan, the Muslim slave market has been revived as blacks in chains from the Dinka tribe are now being auctioned off to Muslim masters. See Dr. Mori's book, Islamic Invasion, page 199 for the documentation. In Arabic, the common word for black is abd, A-B-D, which also means slave. In 1992, a book written by Jean Sasson shook the Muslim world. It was entitled Princess because it was the true story of a Saudi princess in her own words. In her autobiography, she revealed that her Muslim family had many black slaves. On page 29, we read, "We owned a family of Sudanese slaves. Our slave population increased each year when father returned from Hajj, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca made by Muslims with new slave children." The Hajj is the greatest religious event in all Islam. And what do the Muslims do on their Hajj? Buy more black slaves. Third, Muhammad mistreated his black slaves. It is clear that Muhammad treated his black slaves as animals of burden. The black slave Maran tells us his story in his own words. The great Muslim historian Ibn Qasim records that Maran was renamed by Muhammad Safina. He relates his own story. He says the apostle of Allah and his companions went on a trip. When their belongings became too heavy for them to carry, Muhammad told me, "Spread your garment." They filled it with their belongings. Then they came and put it on me. The Allah of Apostle told me, "Carry it, for you are a ship." Even as I was carrying a load of 6 or 7 donkeys while we were on a journey, anyone who felt weak would throw his clothes or his shield or his sword on me so that I could carry that heavy load. The Prophet told me, "You are a ship." It does not take a PhD to see that Muhammad mistreated Maran and made him carry heavy loads. He even changed his name to Ship to degrade him. The name Safina meant that the black slave Maran was nothing more than a ship to carry Muhammad's burdens. But, one Muslim stated, "These are things from long ago. Islam does not make racist statements against blacks anymore," quote unquote. But Malik ibn Ons, one of Islam's most respected modern scholars, states in his commentary on Muhammad's teachings on slavery, page 469, part 9, "The Muslim does not have the right to force the female slave to wed an ugly black slave if she is beautiful and agile, unless in the case of utmost necessity." Referring to black men as ugly black slaves cannot be understood as anything less than racism. In the Quran, Surah 33:50-52 tells us that a slave master could force sex upon his female slaves. The expression, quote, those whom thy right hand possesses out of the prisoners of war, end quote, has always been interpreted by Muslim scholars to mean that a Muslim slave master could force his slaves to have sex with him. Only the day of judgment will reveal how many black women were raped by Muslim masters. Muslims were in the slave business long before they got the Europeans involved, and Muslims are still enslaving and raping slaves today. Anyway, that's from Dr. Morey's book, track, Muhammad the Racist Prophet. You can get it at faithdefenders.com, and that kind of wraps things up for today. Again, make sure you get those Chick tracks. For Muslims, Unforgiven, ? Men of Peace, and Your Best Life. You can get them at chick.com. Thank you so much for your prayers, your support, and be sure and be tuned in next week when David and Eddie will be filling in for me, and Mike and I will be in Mexico, Lord willing, getting those tracks out. Would appreciate your prayers. God bless you, my friend.